There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the heart grows weary of pleading, of crying out into the silence, wondering when things will change. That moment, though it feels like surrender, is not defeat. It is the birth of trust. When you stop begging, you stop affirming lack. You cease to see yourself as the one who must convince God to move on your behalf, and you awaken to the truth that the divine has already moved. It waits for you to align with it. The power that shaped galaxies has not forgotten you. It simply waits for your faith to be still enough to hear its quiet assurance all is well and all is unfolding. Every time you beg, you declare uncertainty. Every time you trust, you declare unity. You were never meant to be a beggar before the infinite, but a co-creator with it. The divine law of trust operates on certainty. What you accept as true within will express itself without. Begging is rooted in fear that you might not receive. Trusting is rooted in knowing that you already have. When you truly understand that you and God are not two but one, your words cease to be desperate pleas and become quiet affirmations of divine order. The same power that causes the sun to rise will bring your desire to pass when your heart beats in harmony with faith. True faith begins where fear ends, because faith is not born out of struggle but from stillness, from the inner conviction that the unseen power of life is always working on your behalf. Fear is the language of separation. It whispers that you are alone, that you must strive, beg, and plead for what is already yours by divine right. Faith, on the other hand, is the voice of union. It affirms that the same power that breathes through the stars breathes through you. When you stop pleading with God to act, you begin to awaken to the truth that God is already acting through you, through your every thought, word, and vibration. The divine energy does not respond to tears of desperation, but to the calm assurance that all things are already moving in perfect order. The moment you release fear, you open the channel through which divine wisdom, strength, and provision flow freely. To live in faith is to walk in quiet power. You no longer tremble before circumstances or question divine timing, because you know that everything seen was once unseen, born from the invisible currents of trust. When you are filled with fear, your mind becomes like a storm-tossed sea, and no clear reflection of divine truth can appear. But when you become still, like calm waters, the image of perfection begins to take shape in your consciousness, and life mirrors it back to you. True faith is not loud. It does not cry out in anxiety or rush to make things happen. It is a silent force that knows, beyond appearances, that the good you desire is already unfolding. It is the inner posture that says, "Even now, the law of life is working for my highest good." When fear rules, it clouds the mind and distorts perception. You begin to see obstacles instead of openings, delay instead of divine timing. But when faith takes hold, everything begins to rearrange itself to serve your growth. The mountain that once seemed immovable becomes a pathway. The delay that once felt unbearable becomes preparation. Faith transforms the way you interpret life. It shifts your attention from what is missing to what is possible. And this shift of focus is not small. It is the very movement that allows divine power to manifest. God does not move because you beg. God moves because you believe. The divine responds to belief the way a seed responds to sunlight. It cannot help but grow. The secret of true faith lies in realizing that it is not something you must manufacture. It is already within you, waiting to be awakened. You do not need to force yourself to believe. You simply need to release fear even a little, and the natural rhythm of trust begins to flow. Each time you choose peace over panic, you strengthen the bridge between your human self and your divine self. Each time you rest instead of resist, the current of divine life moves faster through you. Fear contracts, faith expands. Fear says, "What if?" Faith says, "Even if." Fear doubts divine goodness. Faith sees it in every detail. To live by faith is to step out of the illusion of lack and into the awareness of abundance. It is to know that the universe is not waiting to be convinced. It is waiting to be trusted. Begging from God implies separation, but trusting in God affirms oneness with divine supply. The act of begging carries within it the unconscious belief that the divine and the individual are apart, that God is somewhere distant, withholding blessings until persuaded by pleading words. Yet this belief denies the very essence of spiritual truth, that the presence of God is within you, not outside of you. When you beg, you unintentionally affirm lack. You declare that what you desire is not yet yours, that you are empty and must somehow convince the infinite to fill you. But the truth is that divine supply is as close as your next breath. The source of all creation dwells in your consciousness, and the moment you realize your oneness with it, the illusion of lack begins to dissolve. Trust is not asking for connection. It is knowing you are already connected. It is resting in the awareness that every need is already met in the unseen realm before it becomes visible. To beg is to look outward. To trust is to look inward. The more you beg, the more you strengthen the belief that the answer lies somewhere beyond your reach. But when you turn inward and acknowledge that God's presence is your very life, the need to plead disappears. You no longer approach the divine as a servant before a master, but as a child resting in the care of an infinite Father. Trust transforms your relationship with the divine from one of distance to one of intimacy. Instead of saying, "Please give me peace," you begin to say, "Peace is mine now." Instead of saying, "God help me," you quietly affirm, "God works through me." This is not arrogance, but reverence. It is the recognition that you are an instrument of divine intelligence, that the same creative energy that shapes worlds also shapes your destiny. The moment you stop begging and start trusting, something powerful shifts in your vibration. The energy of desperation gives way to the energy of alignment. You begin to speak, think, and act as though the promise has already been fulfilled, and in that consciousness the law of life responds. Trusting in oneness opens the door for divine supply to flow unobstructed. It is not that the universe suddenly decides to bless you. It is that you have finally removed the mental walls of doubt and separation that once blocked its flow. The current of divine abundance never stops. It only waits for your faith to clear the channel. Trust is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, and on that bridge, fear cannot walk. You begin to understand that you are never without divine guidance, never without support, never without love. You realize that all creation is an outpouring of divine intelligence, and you are part of that expression. Begging is a declaration of distance. Trust is a declaration of unity. When you affirm your oneness with divine supply, you no longer need to chase blessings. They find you. The moment you stop asking when and start saying, "Thank you," the universe rushes to confirm your faith. In that quiet certainty, you become one with the flow of all that is good, and every prayer turns into realization. The universe responds not to desperation, but to conviction. For it is not the loudness of your words, but the certainty of your belief that moves the unseen forces of creation. Desperation is born from doubt. It sends out a signal of fear, a vibration that says, "I do not have, and I may never have." Conviction, on the other hand, carries the quiet power of knowing. It speaks the language of divine law, which always mirrors back to you the quality of your inner state. Every thought and emotion is a seed planted in the soil of the subconscious mind, and the universe nurtures whatever seed is sown. If you sow panic and worry, you harvest delay and confusion. If you sow calm assurance, you reap manifestation and order. Life is not responding to your outer actions, but to your inner conviction, to the silent tone of your faith. When you speak from conviction, you align yourself with divine law. Your words become more than sound. They become creative commands, vibrations charged with the energy of belief. Desperation scatters your energy. Conviction gathers it into focus. A desperate mind cannot see clearly because it is entangled in fear of loss and failure. But a mind rooted in conviction sees beyond appearances. It knows that what is desired already exists in the invisible realm, and that time is only the process by which it becomes visible. Conviction says, "Though I do not yet see it, I know it is done." This knowing is what moves the unseen. It is the magnetic force that draws all necessary conditions, people and events into alignment. The universe operates through order and precision, not emotion or pleading. When your thoughts are filled with desperation, you are broadcasting disorder, and the divine law must mirror that confusion. But when your mind radiates assurance, even in silence, you are broadcasting clarity, and life responds in kind. The law is impersonal. It does not favor anyone, but it always responds to the dominant vibration of your consciousness. Conviction creates a vibration of completion, of something already fulfilled, and so the outer world must eventually match it. The wise understand that it is not about forcing things to happen, but about becoming the state of being that naturally attracts the desired outcome. Every great change begins when you shift from begging to believing, from hoping to knowing. Conviction is that shift. It is the deep inner confidence that you are part of a divine design that never fails. Even when nothing seems to move, conviction whispers, "It is working." And so it does. Your conviction calls forth the divine power hidden behind the curtain of time. When you hold unwavering faith, the universe has no choice but to yield. for it is structured to obey the consciousness of certainty. Desperation shuts the door of creation because it doubts divine order. Conviction opens it wide because it trusts that all is unfolding in perfect harmony. When you live from conviction rather than desperation, you stop chasing miracles and begin to live among them. When you rest in divine assurance, your mind becomes the channel through which the infinite works. And this rest is not idleness but the highest form of activity. It is the calm knowing that the universe is already in motion, that unseen forces are aligning every detail of your life with perfect precision. The restless mind tries to control outcomes, forcing solutions and worrying about results, but the rested mind surrenders that struggle. It allows divine intelligence to flow freely, unhindered by fear or resistance. The moment you let go of the urge to manage the how and when of life, the divine begins to reveal its plan through intuition, synchronicity, and effortless guidance. Resting in assurance is the secret art of partnership with the infinite. It is the silent agreement between your soul and the source that all things are moving toward good, even when the outer picture seems unclear. Divine assurance is not blind optimism, it is spiritual understanding. It is the awareness that every prayer is answered the moment it is spoken in faith, though it may take time for the answer to appear. When you rest in that understanding, you stop rushing to make things happen and start trusting that they are happening. The restless mind doubts and delays. The assured mind receives and manifests. You become like a vessel through which divine wisdom pours, shaping your circumstances from within. In this state, your actions are guided rather than forced. You are no longer driven by anxiety but led by inspiration. This is the difference between human effort and divine flow. One drains energy, the other multiplies it. To rest in assurance is to live in harmony with divine law. It is to know that the same intelligence that governs the stars governs your life, that no force of confusion can prevail against divine order. When your heart is steady in that truth, you become unshakable. You no longer seek signs or external proof, for the peace within you is the proof. Every moment of doubt is an invitation to return to this resting place, to breathe, to release, to remember that the infinite is working through you and for you. The divine cannot move freely through a mind filled with fear, but it moves effortlessly through a heart anchored in trust. This inner rest transforms the atmosphere of your entire being. Your words carry power because they are spoken from calm authority, not from panic. Your decisions become clearer because they rise from intuition, not impulse. You begin to see life not as a battlefield but as a field of unfolding purpose. Even challenges take on new meaning, for you know they are part of the divine process shaping you into greater strength and understanding. When you live in this rest, your energy harmonizes with the rhythm of divine timing, and everything begins to fall into place with ease. You do not need to chase what is meant for you. You need only remain open and still, allowing the infinite to express its perfection through your faith. Gratitude and calm expectancy open doors that pleading keeps closed because they represent the vibration of already having received. When you are grateful, you are in harmony with divine supply. You acknowledge that the universe is abundant and responsive. Gratitude shifts your consciousness from lack to fulfillment, from waiting to receiving. It is not merely an emotion but a declaration of truth, that the good you seek is already present in the unseen. Pleading, however, carries a vibration of lack, of disbelief that the blessing has already been given. Each time you plead, you unconsciously affirm that you are still without, and by the law of mind, the state of without continues. But when you begin to give thanks, even before evidence appears, you signal to the universe that you trust divine timing, and that trust invites manifestation. Gratitude is the spiritual proof of faith. It is easy to thank life for visible blessings, but the soul that thanks in advance has mastered the higher law of trust. When you can say, "Thank you," before you see results, you have crossed from hope into knowing. The universe hears that knowing and responds accordingly. Gratitude changes the atmosphere of your thoughts. It fills your heart with light and opens your mind to divine ideas that lead to fulfillment. In the vibration of gratitude, fear cannot survive, because fear and thankfulness cannot coexist. The moment you choose gratitude, you elevate yourself into the frequency where divine solutions dwell. It is as though every thankful thought becomes a key that unlocks another door of possibility. Calm expectancy is the twin of gratitude. It is the inner stillness that quietly says, "I know it is coming and I am ready to receive." This state of expectancy is not anxious waiting, it is peaceful readiness. It is the consciousness of fulfillment that draws the unseen into form. When you live in calm expectancy, you stop questioning the when and how because you know the divine law is exact. What you truly expect, you inevitably attract, for expectation is faith in motion. A heart filled with calm expectancy does not chase or force, it allows. And in that allowing, the divine current flows unhindered, bringing all things together in perfect sequence. Those who live in gratitude and expectancy walk with quiet confidence. Their prayers are short and serene because they know that the answer is already unfolding. They do not beg for what is theirs, they thank for what is already given. This consciousness turns ordinary days into miracles, because every event is seen as part of divine orchestration. Pleading closes your heart, gratitude opens it wide. Pleading says, I do not yet have. Gratitude says, it is already mine. The divine responds to the language of thankfulness, for it mirrors the harmony of the infinite itself. When you cultivate this steady joy, this calm assurance, doors that once seemed sealed suddenly open, opportunities appear effortlessly, and the things you once chased begin to find their way to you. The divine law of trust transforms prayer from petition into realization. For when you truly trust, you no longer ask as though you are in need, you affirm as one who already possesses. In this sacred shift, prayer ceases to be a plea and becomes an act of recognition. You no longer cry out for help from a distant power, you acknowledge that the power is within you, ready to express itself through faith. The law of trust is the law of alignment. It states that what you inwardly accept as true will outwardly manifest, for consciousness creates form. When your prayer is filled with worry, doubt, and endless repetition, it carries the vibration of uncertainty, and that uncertainty delays manifestation. But when your prayer is spoken from the stillness of knowing, when you say, it is done, the universe moves instantly to fulfill that vibration. Realization prayer is not about convincing God to act. It is about convincing yourself that divine action is already underway. Trust transforms the act of prayer from begging for change to realizing that change is already in progress. You begin to pray not for healing, but from healing not for abundance, but from abundance not for peace, but from peace. The words you speak may remain simple, but the consciousness behind them becomes powerful. You no longer look to the heavens hoping for intervention. You recognize the divine as the invisible essence that fills every atom of your being. Through trust, you merge your thought with the thought of the infinite, and this union produces results effortlessly. The divine law of trust operates by the principle of reflection. Whatever you hold as real within must appear without. When you pray from need, you hold the vibration of lack. When you pray from trust, you hold the vibration of fulfillment. The divine does not decide what you will receive, it mirrors what you believe. This is why faith has always been described as the substance of things hoped for. It is the invisible essence that precedes every visible manifestation. The more deeply you rest in trust, the faster the unseen becomes seen. It is not time that brings results, but alignment. The moment your heart fully believes, reality begins to rearrange itself. When prayer becomes realization, peace replaces anxiety. There is no more struggle, no more desperate striving to be heard. You understand that every prayer is heard the instant it is felt, and the only thing that can delay its answer is doubt. So you learn to release the outcome and rest in divine timing. You speak once, clearly, with conviction, and then let go, knowing that divine intelligence is bringing all things together for your highest good. This is the essence of trust, to know that the unseen hand of God never fails. Prayer is not a request sent into the unknown, it is a declaration made from unity. And in that unity, miracles are not begged for. They are realized.